everyone. We are back, and welcome back to the Vulnerable Woman podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm finally so glad to be back with you. Good morning. Well, I guess maybe it may not be morning to you when you're watching. It's going to be this evening, but here it is morning. And we've got a little bit of a new setup. We wanted to kind of make it a little bit more homey. And also, we're going to kind of have a little bit of a different format. So we're just going to kind of talk about some things before we get started, just about some current things going on, and just have a conversation with you guys before we kind of jump into God's Word this morning. So, Zay, did you have a good Christmas?
I did.
Yeah?
Yeah, family came into town, lots of presents, small house, overwhelming with all wrapping paper everywhere.
I know. Small house, lots of people.
Yes.
Yes. We traveled a ton, but we were glad to be home. I love Christmas, but at the same time, kind of when all the hustle and bustle is over, I'm a little bit relieved. So I'm glad to be able to get back in the normal of things. So did you watch the college football playoffs? So we actually didn't get to watch. As you know, my family and I, Zay's family, are all big Longhorn fans. Yes. So they had the semifinal playoff. It was last Friday, yeah?
Yep.
So my husband had a board meeting retreat, and we were at dinner, and they had TVs, and so we were kind of, watching out of the corner of our eye, but then we had to go to this escape room. And I told Jeremy, I was like, all right, y'all do the escape room, I'm gonna have the football game on. And he's like, no, you can't do that. So we were in the escape room for an hour. We come out, and I think it was tied, and then we were losing. We got to see the end. We got to see the mess at the end. But anyway, one thing that really stuck out to me, my husband showed me later, they were doing like the post-game interviews. It was Steve Sarkisian, the coach, Quinn Ewers, the quarterback, and then, hold on, because I had to ask my husband his name 50 times today. Jahdae Brown, that's who it was, the cornerback, I think. And they were doing an interview, and they say, thank you so much. That's all the questions we have for today. And I actually have the video of it.
Coach, thank you so much, Quinn and Jahdae. You had a truly outstanding season. I'm very proud of you. So thank you for coming.
All right, y'all. Thank you. Hook 'em.
I just want to say one thing. It's been amazing, just the opportunity. But at the end of the day, I just want everybody to know, usually sometimes you always don't come out on top. But we won. We truly know who our leader is, and that's God and Jesus Christ, and ultimately just having the ability to use the gift that He gave us to share it to the world. It's been amazing, and obviously amazing for me just growing up in Austin and having the opportunity. But everybody's not blessed to do the things we do, to be here. People dealing with fires and chaos in New Orleans. So just to have the opportunity to glorify God on the football field, it's truly been an honor. So I appreciate everybody.
Okay, Jahdae, thank you so much.
I would imagine after that loss, which is very heartbreaking, they probably just wanted to have the interview and kind of be done and sulk a little bit. I know that's the way I would feel. But what he said to me was so inspirational. When he could have said something super duper negative, he went into, yes, we all suffered disappointing losses, and it was a disappointing loss for them. But he said, we really won today. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, really? That's impressive that he really feels that way in that moment. And he goes into his faith and what an opportunity it is for him at this time to be able to play football and represent Jesus Christ. And I thought that was so inspirational. He mentioned kind of what had happened in New Orleans, what had happened with the fires in LA, that there's all this suffering around, but yet he still got to play a football game and represent Jesus Christ with all this chaos. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, if that doesn't speak integrity of someone, then I don't know what is. Because when we watch a football game, right, we want our team to win, we're rooting for them, we're not thinking of I'm not thinking of their faith in that moment. I'm thinking of let's play some football and make some touchdowns, and I want my team to be the best one. And I'm not thinking about, kind of what's going on through their mind. And I'm sure, that was a hard time for them. They all worked so hard to get to that place. So I just thought that was very inspirational on his part to, after such a heartbreaking thing, to focus on Jesus Christ. And I just thought it was very, very neat, very inspirational to anybody who's going through a hard time in their life. Kind of if he can pick himself back up and focus on God and know that that's his purpose and his why, so can the rest of us. So anyway, both of our teams lost in the playoffs. My husband went to Penn State, even though he will root for the Longhorns way more. They lost, and then the Longhorns lost. So who are you rooting for in the championship?
What do you think?
Honestly, I don't know. Not Ohio State.
No.
Oh, Notre Dame, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's who I'm rooting for too. Only because I'm bitter though. I mean, Ohio State did beat us out big time. They were definitely the better team in the game. They're a great team, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to root for Notre Dame in the championship. So I want you guys in the comments. I want you to tell me who you're kind of rooting for in the championship. I want to know who your team is, who you're rooting for, and I'm eager to watch and see who kind of wins out. Now, my husband did say to me that they are predicting that Texas will win the national championship next year, but then he also made the comment that how often does their predictions actually happen. So anyway, all right, let's jump in this morning and let's be vulnerable together. So I'm going to be super vulnerable kind of with you about why I took a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it a hiatus, a break, whatever you want to call it. I looked back to see when the last podcast was we did, and I think it was the end of October. So I was kind of at a place where I was getting up and I was having my prayer time, and I was just really struggling with what God would want me to speak about. And, I had so much going on. I had back at work full time, getting up at 4:30 in the morning. Kids had all their events. We're getting into the holidays, preparing for that. And I just, honestly, I felt overwhelmed with things. And I just kind of prayed about it. And I just said to the Lord, I'm like, Lord, I'm going to take a step back for a minute because I really want to remember my why. Why am I in this seat? Because I was at a place where I think I was forgetting my why, and that's why I was struggling to really hear the Lord's voice in what he was wanting me to communicate to you guys. And it kind of worked out because November, December, Zay is also real busy because that's December's Christmas, and they prepare for our big Christmas Eve services. You guys, it was 4 services, yeah, at our big performing arts center, and it holds 1,500, I think Jeremy said, and every service was just about full, yeah. So they spend months preparing for that. So it would just kind of worked out. To kind of take a step back for a little while, but you guys I was still praying for you, still thinking about you, but I just kind of had to recenter, myself and really, just have conversations with God, and I'm going to share a little bit more about that. Every January, when that ball drops in New York City, most people come up and they're like, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution or a New Year's goal or, whatever you want to call it. I'm not really one to say, this year I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I may say, well, last year I kind of fell off on doing something. Like, I'll give an example. I work out a lot just to take care of my health and my fitness. And I'd kind of gotten to where there was a point where I was working out 7 days a week, which was a lot. And then I almost got to where I was struggling to work out 3 days a week because of just, life and busyness. And, one of the things that I said that I really wanted to get back to this year is maybe not working out 7 days a week, but getting to where I was at a place where I was doing more than 3 days a week and just making more time for myself and really taking care of my body. And, but a lot of times they say that the status is that about the second day, third day of the year, everybody quits their resolution or their goal, whatever that is, for you. And so sometimes we'll want to do something, and we have that good intent and our heart is there, but our mind isn't connecting with our heart in it. And we let things kind of get in the way of where our heart is. Most of the time when I struggle with something like this, which honestly, I'll be real frank, it seems to be more often than not that I get on the struggle bus. A lot of times I talk to my husband, of course. He always knows everything that's going on in my life. But I will also a lot talk to my mom. I reach out to her quite a bit. And I was telling her, I said, I go through these phases where I kind of question. I'm like, did I just make this up in my brain to do this, because my podcast isn't really growing. I'm struggling to find the time to do the things that I need to do for it. Is this really where I should be? And I start questioning and doubting. And as you guys know that I've shared with you before, this isn't the first time that this has happened, right? And my mom stopped me and she said something to me. She said, when we're supposed to be doing something for God, the devil likes to come in and he likes to make us question it. And he likes to make it difficult for us to do that thing because she said, what does he want us to do? He wants us to give up, right? So sure, he's going to make you doubt what you're doing because God has you in a place where you're being vulnerable with people to show his love, grace, and mercy. And he wants you to question that because he doesn't want people out there to know his love, grace, and mercy. And just kind of like, even though I have known that my entire life, why is it when my mom says it to me, it's like a little light bulb goes off and I can accept it. But in my mind, even though I know it, it's just not connecting to my heart for some reason. But when my mom tells it to me, all of a sudden, boom, it connects to my heart. In 1 Peter 5:8, it says to stay alert. Watch out for the great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion for someone to devour. So you guys, if you're out there and you're setting goals or you have questioned your why in something, or God has asked you to do something and you're like, well, I don't know if I have the time, or maybe, there's other people out there that could really do that, or whatever questions are coming up in your mind, just know this. That probably means you should do it. If you're questioning it or making excuses, give it a go. Because the devil's trying to make you doubt. He wants you to quit. He wants you to give up. He wants you to doubt your why or say, oh, I'm not the person for this, or so-and-so might be better for this, or else he wouldn't have placed it in your heart. Well, let me tell you this. Sure enough, when I start questioning my why about something, God likes to show up, right? So, like I said, the last podcast we did, I think, was in October. I believe this was kind of the very first week, December, and then one of them was mid-December. I had people that I would have never guessed in a million years ask me about my podcast. People that I'm not really super I know them, but I'm not I don't have a friendship with them, or they're not a family member, because a lot of my family watches, right? Close friends, things like that. So it was people that, they're probably more of an acquaintance. And if you would have asked me to pick someone out in the crowd that probably watches the Vulnerable Woman podcast, it wouldn't be these individuals. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing. I just didn't think that this podcast was probably something they would enjoy. But one was a gentleman. He came up to me and he says, hey, I've been watching your podcast, but you haven't had any new episodes lately. And I was like, oh. And I'm sure my response, he was probably puzzled by it because it caught me off guard a little bit, because I'm thinking, okay. I said, well, we're taking a little bit of a breather, but I said, we'll pop back on in January. He's like, oh, good. I really enjoy it. And then mid-December, someone that I don't know at all, I found out, asked about my podcast and when we would be having a new episode through another person. And they brought that to my attention, and I was like, really? She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay then. Like, it caught me off guard, because I have a tendency, as the rest of the world does, you look at what kind of social media shows. So ours are posted on YouTube, so I'll go on there and see. I'll be like, oh no, this one only has this many views, but this one's got more views. People aren't watching. Well, that's not necessarily, the case. There's numbers don't say what's in someone's heart. And I think I had gotten too focused on what the numbers were and not what's going on inside someone's heart or in their life, or who's it touching. I got focused on the social media and the numbers, and that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to focus on Jesus and what he wants me to say, and he'll take care of the rest. Whether the podcast grows or whether it doesn't, that's not my job. My job is to communicate to you what Jesus has to say and show you the love through my vulnerability. And this is me being vulnerable. I struggled. I did. I really, really struggled. So yesterday morning, I was reading my Bible. I've kind of switched over. I'm trying something new. So I told you guys in the past, my husband, he likes to do the Bible app where you just push play and listen. I was kind of one of those people. I'd just go in my Bible and say, hey, this month I'm going to read out of John or wherever, and I would just pick a book and go from there. So Jeremy does a reading plan in the Bible app. I think it's called the Life Plan. And so I was like, I'm going to try his way, and I'll just follow along in my Bible. Hey guys, quick interruption. I just want to remind you, if you're not subscribed to our channel, hit the little bell at the bottom for reminders. Subscribe to our channel so that way you can see when we have a new episode each week. So hey, let's hop back into the conversation real quick. Well, yesterday I was reading, and they were on Genesis 32, and that's where it talks about Jacob. Well, if most of us know Jacob, right, you've probably heard the story of Jacob's well, or Jacob and Esau, right, where Jacob steals Esau's birthright for some soup. So Esau must have been really hungry, I will say that, because the soup, I think, was just some lentil soup. But he gave away his birthright for it. So I'm going to give a little bit of the backstory, kind of what was going on in Genesis 32, and then I'm going to get into the story of where Jacob wrestles with God, which I thought was very interesting, and it really hit me because I was like, oh, I am so Jacob right now. So Jacob, as you know, he got stole, I guess, or took his brother's birthright, Esau's birthright. Esau, he was very hungry. Jacob had some lentil soup. He says, okay, I'll give you the soup, but you got to give me your birthright, because Esau was the older brother. And Esau was kind of like, really? Like, you want my birthright for a bowl of soup? And Jacob's like, basically, your birthright or no soup? How hungry are you? And Esau's like, okay, well, you can have my birthright. I'm really hungry. Give me some soup. So later on down the line, Jacob wants to go to Esau to make amends, and he sends his servants over with, I can't remember if it was goats, cattle, donkeys, I don't remember what it was, to basically gift Esau, because he wanted to make amends and go see Esau. So he sends his servants. And his servants come back and they say, sorry, Jacob, Esau's not interested, basically. He's sending 400 men to come after you. And I'm sure Jacob was like, what the heck? So I'm sending him an apology. He's sending 400 men after me. So I think I'm going to guess that Jacob probably went into a panic, because I know I would go into a panic if I knew 400 men were coming to kill me. So that leads us into 32, verse 24. It says, and Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. And when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and Jacob's thigh was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for day is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go unless you declare a blessing upon me. The man asked him, what is your name? And in shock of realization, he said, Jacob. Jacob, supplanter, schemer, trickster, swindler. And he said, your name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, contender with God. For you have contended and have power with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him, tell me, I pray you, what in contrast is your name? But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And the angel of God declares a blessing on Jacob there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, the face of God, saying, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is spared and not snatched away. And as he passed Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he was limping because of his thigh. That is why to this day the Israelites do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is the hollow of the thigh, because of Jacob's thigh on the sinew of the hip. So I'm pretty sure I said that word wrong, but there you go. Some of the wording back then, right? So when I read this yesterday morning, that's exactly where my mind went. I basically, in the months of November and December, I wrestled with God on where I was supposed to be and my why and my time and all the things that are just kind of going on in my life. You know, Jacob went through a lot of hard times, if you think about it. But Jacob was also kind of a little bit of a manipulator in some ways. So Jacob waited. There's Jacob and Rachel, right? He worked 20 years for Laban just so he could marry Rachel. And Laban even gave him Leah. And Jacob still said, no, I want Rachel. So he worked the extra years. Can you imagine working 20 years just to marry one person? That's a super long time. I mean, I love my husband very much. We haven't even been married 20 years yet. It's almost 20. And I just think to myself, I'm like, gosh, could I wait for one person for 20 years? But he did. He waited for her for 20 years. So he had some frustrating things. And then also he's, trying to do the Lord's will. His family is built, and then he tries to make amends with Esau, and then Esau sends 400 men basically to come and kill him. But then he goes and he wrestles with God. And I thought it's interesting because I just had so many questions about that moment for Jacob. I went and read some commentaries. Some commentaries think that it wasn't necessarily a physical wrestle. They think it was more of like maybe, a wrestling of words or kind of arguing. I lean more, my mind says it's got to be a physical wrestle because, why else would God touch, Jacob's hip and have it dislocated? If I was just having a conversation with somebody, I'm not going to, reach up and grab them by the neck. But, if you think about wrestling is a I guess if there was any sport that is really contact to contact, it's definitely wrestling. I watch how close those people, they're like hugging and turning and twisting and, they're in close contact. It's a intimate sport, it wouldn't be my cup of tea for a sport, but, some people love it. I have, my good friend Tara that was on my podcast a while back, her son-in-law wrestled in high school, and I think he might coach wrestling now if I'm correct. But it's just a very intimate sport, and Jacob I'm going to guess he was a little frustrated, and he was wrestling with God. Did he know it was God at that time? I don't know. I don't know that answer. They say it was an angel basically, representing God, but I thought to myself, I'm like, well, I wouldn't even attempt to wrestle God like that because he's going to win is what I'm thinking. And then but I also think in here, God could have he's God. He could have said to Jacob, hey, I'm going to win. What are you doing? But he didn't. He let Jacob wrestle with him. And what stood out to me in the commentaries that I read is one of them said, God wants you to wrestle with him. And I kind of was like, really? And then I went on to read. It said, God would rather you wrestle with him than walk away from him. And I thought, wow. God would rather spend time wrestling with me than me just get fed up and say, you know what, I'm done. You know, I'm done. God would rather wrestle with you, with what you're going through, and maybe even let you be right. I don't know. Even when he knows it's probably not the best decision for you, sometimes maybe he says, okay, I'm going to let you, even when he could overpower you. He would rather do that than you walk away from him. He loves us that much. And my heart just was softened in such a big way in that moment that I sat there and I thought that God would rather wrestle with me in my struggles and me trying to figure out my why and taking the break, and he would rather put up with that than me just say, okay, whatever, I'm done, I'm over it. He would rather me wrestle with him. And, let's be honest, is arguing with me and him wrestling with Jacob, is that probably a waste of his time? I would probably say so, because he's got bigger problems to deal with in this world right now than me and my why. We've got people who are losing their homes in this world, people who were celebrating New Year's and got ran over by a man that was lost and broken. And we don't look at that individual like that. We just look at him as a terrorist. But he was lost and he was broken. But people lost their families and their children, their spouse, their friend. But I'm over here wrestling with God on my why. But he still cares. He still cares. And he still cares about you with whatever thing that you're going through, whatever that is. He hears you. He did not turn his face from you. Even though you may not be feeling a response right now, he knows your struggles. He knows what you're going through. Just stop and listen and be patient. That, as I always say, that is the hardest part. Everybody struggles. We are a sinful human. I'm a sinful human. People in the Bible were sinful. I'm going to read you something that Paul said in Romans 7:15 through 23. He said, I don't really understand myself. For what I want to do is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know that I'm doing what is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. So I am not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me that is in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I can't do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But I do what I don't want to do. I'm not really the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. I have discovered this principle of life that when I want to do what is right, I I cannot say that word. Say it. Yeah, I can't say it. Inevitably. Neither of us can say it. Inevitably. Okay, none of us can say that word, friends. I'm sorry, but you know where we're trying to go, hopefully. Oh, man, that one got me for sure. Okay, now I've lost my spot. I got distracted. Sorry, everyone. This is just real. We're just real here, okay? And I'm just going to skip right over that word. Okay, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is the sin living in me that does it. I've discovered this principle of life that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that is still within me. He's basically saying, my heart's in the right place, but my flesh and my mind are not. I want to do what is right, but my sinful nature takes over. And I think that I'm speaking for myself. My sinful nature probably overrides my choices more so than not. And I think that goes for all of us. But don't beat yourself up. That's why God gave us His grace. That's why God gave us mercy. That's why He loves you. If you've put something off in your life that you feel like God is asking you to do, there is still today. Get up and do it. Will I go and question God again? I probably can guarantee that I will. And so will you. Will you question, God, why again? Yes, you will. Why? Because we're human. We're sinful beings. But that is why God sent His Son to die on the cross for us. He loves you. He wants to give you second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, however many chances He has to give you so that you can see His love for you. He doesn't care. He just wants you. That's it. He wants you. He wants a relationship with you. He wants you to see your future, what you can do for God's kingdom. God sent us out to be disciples, to go and make disciples. That's what He wants, and He wants you. What's the best way to do that? Start getting in God's Word, spend time with Him, and give yourself grace. Forgive yourself. And let's move forward. I can't hold on to me struggling the past few months, but what I can do is pick up today and move forward. My mistake was I allowed my selfish, sinful nature to override what I knew God was asking me to do. I focused on the wrong thing. I was focused on numbers. I was focused on what I needed to do with social media. I was focused on, God, I have hardly any time, but I can't do what needs to be done. I can't manage the social media. I can't do this. I can't do that. I was focused on all my can'ts, but I didn't go to the person who can. And I prayed and I said, Lord, I promised you this podcast is yours, and it is. If I need help or if I need something done or if I don't have time, God, you know. I need to come to you and focus on you and your Son. You know the need. You will provide. I wrestled with God, but I can promise you this. I did not win that fight. He did. And I'm glad He did. I'm very glad He did. And you will be glad too. I'm going to end with this. There's a t-shirt that I got from my friend Tara. She did the foster adoption ministry, and I went to a training with her at a place called the Riverside Project for foster care. I don't foster kids or anything like that, but I went to the training with her, and they gave us a t-shirt. And on the front of it, it said, anything worth doing is hard. So anything God is going to ask you to do, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And that's what I have to remember. This isn't going to be an easy journey. It's not always going to be convenient. And what He's asking you to do is not always going to be easy and convenient. And you're not always going to have time. But I promise you, if you confide in Him and trust in Him and let Him lead you, it will be worth it because He loves you. Thank you guys so much for joining me today on The Vulnerable Woman. I love you guys, and always remember, be vulnerable with God. I love you.